M55, the Helix Nebula, California Nebula, and other observations on episode 503 of the actual astronomy podcast. I'm Chris, and joining me is Shane. We are amateur astronomers who love looking up at the night sky, and this podcast is for everybody who enjoys going out under the stars. Have you been able to get any observing in, Shane?
Not any real nighttime observing. I've done a little bit of solar observing with my Lunt wedge, so some white light stuff. And an episode or two, I guess it would be 2 episodes ago, I mentioned that there was a lot of sunspot activity to see. So been enjoying that in small bursts, but yeah, that is all for me. How about you?
Yeah, I've been able to get quite a bit in. Kind of getting back into the painting of the observatory. It seems like every autumn I'm rushing to trying to get some painting done. And I mean, it's the small observatory, but it just I wanted to put a few coats of paint on the walls and the exterior and that because it gets so much moisture in that. But in the spring we had a lot of really cold weather. Like you couldn't paint in May. It was freezing cold, and then by the time it was warming up into June, we got a ton of rain and then alternating smoke.
Mm-hmm.
So just didn't really work out too well for that. Mike was out last night, brought out some counterweights for me.
Cool. And you mentioned that he's getting a binoscope?
He's had a binoscope for a while.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
Well, neither did I. He keeps a lot of stuff from us, apparently.
Is it is it one of those Oberwerk
Ye-
kind of bino things or an APM one or
Yeah, it's an overwork. I didn't look at it. He didn't bring it out. He just brought in the eyepieces.
oh,
Bunch of Vixen LVs and then the 23.9 millimeter overwork ones. But it's an 80 millimeter, and yeah, his he was looking on I think like the local used Regina sites and found this for a good price. Some guy locally bought it and only ever looked at the moon with it, and I think sadly had passed away, and his son was selling it, and so Mike went and picked it up for a good price.
huh. Well, good
Kind of
for
a
him.
yeah, strange sort of thing to find just sort of randomly sort of down the street in our city because it's not really that big a city. And typically I feel like we would probably know most of the people that would have such a piece of gear, but he must have seen like the ads in some sort of other magazine or whatever and then picked it up and was just using it to look at the moon.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, yeah. And then all the associated eyepieces and everything. But yeah, I've been getting quite a bit of observing in. So, do you have? And I made up a bit of a plan for the fall, um, just to try to get as much in as I can. But do you have much of a plan currently, or still working on double stars, or where are you at with your observing?
Yeah, I always have two plans kind of on the go, one for dark skies and then one for the backyard. And sometimes they intersect, but not often.
Mm,
And for the backyard, there's not a lot of double stars that are on my list. Like I've been just pursuing the RASC double star list that Blake created a number of years ago. But I think all I have left on there is some winter objects. So unless I stay up late one night in the fall to observe them, I think I'll probably leave those,
hmm.
which means I'm going to transition over to carbon stars and do a lot of that from the
Nice.
backyard and probably layer in some double stars because the Cambridge Double Star Atlas has like a top 100 or a top 200 list. So
Hmm.
some of those are the same as what is on Blake's list, but some are different. So I'll probably, uh, you know, grab a few of those as I'm in the neighborhood. And then for dark sky, I'm still just slowly plugging away at the hidden treasures list from Stephen James O'Meara. I think I'm close to halfway on that list, at least halfway with objects that we can see from our latitude. There are some, because he did all of his observing in Hawaii, that I think will be a little challenging for us to get given our northern latitude. So I'll just keep plugging away at that, though. How about
Nice.
you? What is your fall observing plan?
Oh, I started making this list of wide field targets and then started like throwing in all these other targets just, oh, well, this would be interesting to look at, or oh, I have never looked at this before. And now it's sort of a mess of an observing list.
Oh, okay.
So I was poking around a little bit with it the past, well, this morning and then on Friday evening. But yeah, I'm gonna have to kind of organize them a little bit better. I have one of planetary nebulae that I made up from there was a paper written in 1918 by the guy named H.D. Curtis. I think we did a podcast on that a while back. Anyway, I still have that list. I've just been kind of enjoying getting back out under the stars after not being able to do so for a while for a variety of reasons, weather, other life events, summer light and smoke and poor weather and everything. So it's just been nice to be able to actually be out under the stars really and start looking at things again.
Yeah, always feels nice. It's therapeutic too for me. I just enjoy the stress relief and the enjoyment I get from it.
Yeah. So I was out on Friday night, and the first thing I wanted to look at was Messier 55, which is a huge globular cluster just southeast of the handle of the teapot of Sagittarius.
Hmm.
And I'm not sure, have you that's it's pretty low here, but I was able to get it from the observatory in the 7 inch. Have you seen that? I'm sure you've seen it, but have
Yeah,
you
I've
ever had
definitely
a
seen it, but I haven't looked at it that many times.
Yeah, it's because oftentimes there's a lot of atmosphere to look through in that direction or what have you. But it was not the most clear night, but it was very homogeneously clear. It was no clearer overhead than it was at the horizon almost. So it was kind of a funny night, which actually made it pretty good at the horizon. And I was able to resolve quite a few stars in it with the 7 inch, and even was easily able to see it in the 54 millimeter achromatic finder that I have on that scope, which that kind of surprised me.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that was my first one because it was just past the meridian, so I was right on it as soon as it was sort of dark enough to observe. It was probably like 90% dark, and it's getting dark pretty quickly these nights, so I knew that was probably my last chance. So I did a bit of a sketch on it, but I probably resolved like 3 dozen stars in it, which is a record for me. I've really just barely been able to pull it out of the sky before, like with binoculars or a small telescope or whatever. I always thought it was a bit of a victory just to even get that one, but it was actually looked like a globular cluster last night or on Friday night. It was pretty good.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, looked at Messier 8 just after that because again it's starting to get pretty low and was really able to get a nice observation of both the cluster that's in there and then the nebulae with like the big lagoon type feature was quite nice.
Hmm.
Yeah, that looked really, really good, and then panned up through like the star clouds and M24 and could see like the dark nebula, and then I think it's NGC 6633. There's an open cluster in there, and then over to M17, the Swan Nebula was fantastic. I could really easily see like sort of billowing clouds of the swan, and then this huge cloud bank sort of just out past the tail and kind of ducking a little bit underneath the swan. There's like a big extension around it, and that just was red like immediately visible. I think I've kind of sort of seen it before, but never so like readily and easily, at least not through a telescope of this aperture. It's pretty
Hmm.
good.
Well, that's really nice.
Yeah, up to M16, the Eagle Nebula, I could see like that fullest extent like right away, and had my multiple filter selector in, so I was running through all these filters and kept going up to M or SH2-54, which I didn't know that. I guess people call it the invisible nebula. It's not that tough, but pretty easy with filters. But it is just sort of an amorphous glow. Um, and then I went up. I wanted to take a look. This is just sort of a selection of the objects. I did about 2.5 or 3 hours, and try not to push myself too hard these days. But NGC 6888, the Crescent Nebula, up there just off of Seder, there in the middle of Cygnus, right in the middle of the cross, or just below the middle of the cross. And right away, I could see the bright streak of the crescent. And then just after looking at it for a few seconds, I could see like the larger sort of scallop shell shape structure was pretty fantastic. I did a sketch of that too, but I have seen that one before, but never in the 7 inch. And I've seen it in an 8 inch Zambuto reflector of Mike Gatto, who is our designer for the RAC Observer's Calendar, but never have I seen it with such great detail. And I have that filter slide in so I can go through no filter, UHC, O3, H beta, like boom, 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 and then kind of get a bit of an appreciation for the full extent of it. And then I think I ended up putting like a 12 millimeter on it. Did like a 12 and a 22 and a 40. Really great target. And yeah, I think I could pick up some of like the outer shell nebulosity, which was pretty cool.
Hmm. I really like that filter selector that you have. It because like one of my big like reasons why I don't use filters that much is I just hate taking the eyepiece out, screwing in a filter, and unless you're looking at, nebulas that take advantage of that type of filter for the rest of the night, you're either
Yep.
taking the filter out or putting a different one in, and I just don't bother as a result. So having that slide in there just to quickly put the filter
Yep.
into the optical path is such a nice thing.
Yes. And I couldn't agree more. So I always wanted one of these Lumicon multiple filter selectors, which is a terrible name and probably part of its demise. Also, the price, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they were $600 or $700 American, or maybe $500 American, or something like that. Very expensive for basically what amounts to a regular diagonal. But I mean, the Lumicon diagonals anyway were around a few $100 US when you could get them, and then it's just like a little slide that kind of goes through. So a bit of a premium for not a lot of gear. And when I got it, and the reason why I got it is that I bought it from a telescope store that was going out of business. Inadvertently, I bought a diagonal, a Lumicon diagonal that they had, and this was during the early years of our podcast, Shane, or maybe the first year of our
Mhm.
podcast. And you had sent me a link for the store that was going out of business. And I ordered this diagonal because I'm like, oh, I really like these Lumicon diagonals. I'd been looking for one because mine's pretty old now. It was like 20 years old and still worked fine, but had seen better days. And time for a new one. Oh, great. And these are on sale. It was like 130 bucks Canadian or $99 Canadian, super cheap. They sent it to me, and it wasn't the regular diagonal, it was the bottom part to the multiple filter selector diagonal. So I wrote them back and I said, hey, it's missing a part. Like, this is what this is that you sent. You actually don't have this. And so, one way or another, I can't remember whether I paid another $99 or something, but they ended up sending me another diagonal and the multiple filter selector top. So I ended up with all these parts. I was showing them to Mike last night. So I have like a double set for the diagonal portion anyway. But I got a 99.9% reflectivity from Lumicon, and then I got a 98% one plus the multiple filter selector head. So if anything happens to it, I'm good to go. I can probably go for forever now. Considering the first one got me 20 years, these two should probably get me through the next 40. So I'm okay.
Yeah, I think you're covered.
Yeah. And for possibly, I think my maximum spend on it was a couple $100 for typically what might run pretty close to $1,000. So yeah, that was a pretty good find. And they don't make them anymore. And it's sort of my preferred. Now, the downside with the way that it works is that it doesn't work very well in your traditional draw tube with your set screws. It works best to have the batter or something like the batter click lock threaded onto your barrel.
Hmm.
And so what I was doing this week, as I was chatting with you about on text, is seeing if I could get an adapter to take off my set screw ring on the Moonlight focuser. It's a little bit of a complicated setup, but it's nice. You have the focuser, 2.5 inch focuser, and then you can thread in different components. So you can thread in a 2 inch draw tube, for example, which is what I have, and then threading into that, you can have your three retaining screws and your compression ring. Sort of for holding your diagonal or accessories. You can also thread in a 1.25 inch if you want to use 1.25 inch accessories, and you can get different lengths of draw tube and everything. So I have a 2 inch draw tube. I have the 1.25 inch adapter. I have a couple 2 inch adapters for it. And it's nice because if you need more in focus, you can just take the 2 inch draw tube out. You can put in a different draw tube. You can do all kinds of weird and wacky stuff. And what I'm going to do is I have an adapter coming, not real expensive, like $50, $60, and thread that in, and then I can put one of my Bader click locks on. I guess I just have one now that I think about it. But anyway, I can put the Bader click lock in, and then that will work really well with the multiple filter selector because you can rotate the filters a little. And I like to rotate my diagonal a little. So if I'm sitting or standing or whatever, to get sort of the optimum position, especially if I'm sketching. And when you're using the filters, as you know, you need to make sure you're straight on to the eyepiece and the filter. Otherwise, you don't get as much of a benefit. So, looking forward to getting that hopefully in the next week here, depending.
Right on.
Yeah, should be good. But I think you have some of the click locks as well, don't you?
Yeah, just about every one of my scopes now, I think, has it, except for the TSA 102.
Hmm.
And that's intentional. On that telescope, I wanted to use my bino viewer natively without any kind of Barlow. And in order to do that, I had to shorten the light path as much as possible. And those click locks actually add probably close to an inch or so, maybe even a little bit more into the light path typically. So I just chose not to do that. But on my FOA 60, 76 DCU, click locks on those, and then a couple diagonals have click locks as well. It's a really nice way to operate because it gets like you said, like a really like good fit, and they're just easy to kind of, especially like in the diagonal. It's so quick to take
Yeah.
eyepieces in and out with that.
Yeah, especially if you're changing filters, like you were mentioning, is already a hassle. And if you're going to do it,
Mhm.
that's the way to do it. I know some people have used filter wheels. That's something I might explore because the one of the downsides with the filter selector is that it exposes your filters, right? So you have to be a little bit careful in the use and not sneeze around them or anything. Mine are probably getting a little bit dirty, but it's nice because, like I said, I leave the opening and then I have UHC, O3, and H beta in that order. So gradually a tighter and tighter bandwidth, and you can just like click, 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 and go through them and figure out like, okay, which one works best on this target. Otherwise, like it's so much futzing around, and then sometimes like it's hard to determine like is this view better than without a filter? Is this view with the UHC better than with the O3? Like I was looking at the Orion Nebula this morning, and definitely I thought UHC better than O3, which I'm not sure if that's what I had thought previously. So
Hmm.
it kind of takes a lot of that monkeying around and guesswork out. You can kind of work pretty quickly between the filters.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mike brought out those weights. So my mount AZ-EQ6, and I thought I got a great deal. Got it from a listener. I just happened to live north of the city, and picked that up for around $1,500, which I thought was a screaming deal. It works great. It's third hand, but it works awesome, and it's in the observatory, so it's kind of exposed to a lot of elements. It's exposed to elements right now because the roof is stuck. But anyway, Mike picked up an AZ EQ6 for $50.
He's been having all kinds of great deals lately.
Yeah, that guy. Well, actually, I guess his wife Veronica found it, but quickly led him to it at the Star Party. Some guy was selling it, and before asking too many questions, he paid the $50. And the person said that the altitude clutch sticks, right? And I'm like, well, yes, it does stick in this. That's just, I think it's a bit sticky. Like mine's kind of a bit stuck right now. You got to buy a handle. I bought a handle off Amazon. Finally, I was able to find the right one. They're not expensive, $8. It's just a Nicholson file holder. And I bought a few before on the recommendation of this guy down in Australia, but he was like, really, you need the Nicholson one because it has a large hole that you can put different, I don't know what you call them, but it has like different inserts, and then you can hold different filter or different files with it, right? Which I don't care about. But it's large enough that it fits over the clutch. Is kind of weird. It has like these three spokes that come out, and they're about, I don't know, like a centimeter in diameter or close to it. And it's hard to find something. And they're awkward because they're out at like a 30 or 40-degree angle. So they're really awkward to kind of push and pull. And they're rounded and very, very smooth. And yeah, it does tend to stick. And mine certainly is stuck now. So gonna put this handle on and be able to use that clutch a little bit better. But yeah, so Mike brought out the counterweights, and I've got an ADM D saddle plate on order. So I have a DV saddle plate in there, which means it can take both Vixen plates as well as Mandy plates, the wider plates. And the reason why I'm doing this is that on the D plate I have there's some catches like some screws that will catch the scope from sliding backwards.
Hmm.
And right now they're sitting in the trough of the Vixen plate. And to be honest, initially when I was ordering, I only ordered the D, but he sent me the DV, I guess. He kind of had suggested getting the DV anyway. And then in use, like really it made more sense to have the DV because I have other scopes with V plates. So anyway, but at this point now that I'm using the 7-inch only has the D plate, I just want to have that and be able to take advantage of those catches in case the telescope ever randomly lets go. I think it's highly unlikely the way that ADM engineers their products. Like I've had the clamp on it now for quite some time, and I every night before I use it, I make sure it's screwed down because the one that came with the Skywatcher mount, like if you didn't tighten those clamps before you observed, like it would get a little bit loose from time to time, a little bit. Whereas this ADM, nothing. Once I clamped that down the first time, never have I ever sensed any kind of loosening of that. It's just perfect. So I don't have a lot of concern, but it is a small concern. And then the whole telescope will sit like about an eighth of an inch or a quarter inch closer to the mount, which typically doesn't matter too much. But when you have a 6-foot tube that weighs, like I think all told, when I have everything loaded on, it is like 50 pounds. you you can take advantage of getting that just a scooch closer, and it's be nice to have an eighth of an inch more in the observatory to move around the telescope because it's a little bit tight in there, but it's all good.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, so that's what's going on, and then doing some painting in that too. Uh, yeah, Friday night, yeah, continuing to observe. Yeah, saw sharpless, not sharpness, but sharp less 2-73, which is a big molecular cloud up there on Hercules. I'd never seen that before. Um, I like looking at that kind of stuff. It was okay. I'm not sure I would like recommend it. It's just like a dark cloud. I could see it without any filter, could see it also with the filters. It's visible. It's just there's not really much to write home about. I think again, it's one of those ones people take photos of, and it looks good in photos. In a big aperture refractor, you can see it. It's just there's just not that much to see there. I looked for the Draco dwarf. So I don't know if you recall this. Speaking of observing lists, is I made up a list based on the targets from Lucien Campbell, 50 to the pole, and I've even now made it up as a sky list for Sky Safari. People have that. They can email us at actualastronomy@gmail.com. I'll send that to them. And then I also have some other supporting documentation for it. But one of the ones that I saw that Kemble observed and that is in that list is this Draco dwarf. Have you ever seen this by chance?
I don't know. I don't think so.
I can tell you I haven't seen it.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
still haven't seen it. I spent 20 minutes. I don't think I saw it.
Okay.
Apparently it's quite big, but I don't know. Maybe on a really good night. It was almost at the zenith too, so straight overhead, but
Mm.
I can't say that that was the thing I spent the most time looking for that I didn't see. Um, Lots of other observing. Took a look at the Pac-Man nebula. That's NGC 281, which is, I think it's like a cluster and a nebula together. Kind of looks like Pac-Man. I'm sure. I know you've seen that because I've looked at that when you had your 12 inch.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
And uh, and that looked really good, especially with the filters. Really, really nice. You could just see that Pac-Man shape, and like the mouth was very clearly defined on one side. I can't remember which side it is. Then you can see that star that forms the eye of Pac-Man was really nice. A couple other targets from Kemble were Cedarbland 214 and NGC 7882. I kind of felt like I could see them ish. I've never really confirmed these. These ones I find pretty tough, and they're two large extended emission nebulas, not too far from Cassiopeia, but I think they're in Cepheus. But anyway, yeah, they are tough targets, and almost think, and I was telling you this at the start, that it's like, it seems like every telescope is really good at seeing certain things. If you have like a 60 millimeter f6 or an f5 refractor, that's a great instrument to modify to 2 inch or even not. You can get like a 6 or 7 degree field of view, even with a 1 1/4. You might get close to an 8 or 9 degree true field with 2 inch accessories. Beautiful wide field instrument. The larger you go, so you have a 36 instrument. Well, you point that at Andromeda, and you might not even be able to see Andromeda because it's going to have too narrow a field of view. Um, and I almost feel like this 7 inch is almost just slightly too large a focal length to really see these objects. Ideally, maybe like go back to my 5 inch, maybe and try again. Anyway. Oh, I looked at Stefan's quintet. Remember we saw that one night? You and I went out to that like weird
Yep.
little spot. Anyway, I took a look at that. Took a look at M15. I wanted to see Peas 1, which is a planetary nebula in M15, but I was kind of moving a bit quick and I couldn't see it. I tried to see it. I didn't see that. I saw M15, of course, but couldn't see that. But the best view of the night, again, it's like every telescope whether you have a 60 millimeter, 70 millimeter ST80, like a $100 telescope, whether you have like a 20-inch reflector like Bill Weir or you name it, 11-inch
Hmm.
Mikasa grain, every telescope has like certain targets, and it's like this is the best instrument to look at with this telescope. Well, with this 7-inch, the Helix is one of the best things to look at with this 7 inch. I've never seen it so well. I saw tons of detail. I could see the outer shell. I could see like those Ansay points. I could see the donut hole nebulosity in the hole, and I could
Wow.
see like 4 or 5 different levels of nebulosity. I did a sketch on it. Actually, I might as well just look at it. My sketch looks terrible in the daylight, but by doing the sketch, even if it looks bad, maybe I'll fix it up later. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll go back and do like I felt like I could almost spend an evening just looking at the helix and pulling out different levels of detail. It was just so spectacular, Shane. One can hardly even begin to describe it, and to say how close it is to some of the best astrophotos as far as the detail that can be seen. It just absolutely blew me away. Can't
Hmm.
believe it. Just
Wow, that sounds amazing. I definitely need to check that out.
yeah, it like the best thing to do with an instrument is to go, and this is almost what I guess I'm doing, and I'm not really doing this purposefully, but I'm going through and just looking at a whole pile of stuff almost randomly because I'm just going through and like, oh, this looks cool, add it to my list, add it to my list. And some of the stuff, no go. It doesn't, it just, this is not the instrument for it. and it's very random almost. I would have thought some of the stuff I'm looking for would look spectacular, and it doesn't. And then I'm like something like the Helix, which often is a bit underwhelming. Like in my 5 inch, I could just see barely get a hint of the whole, and I could see kind of one or two sort of varying levels of nebulosity, but this is just a whole different level of detail. And often the helix is difficult to see, but in this 7 inch, when the helix is on the meridian, even without a filter, you can see as much detail as I can see in my 5 inch on the best night using a filter. It's just a whole different level. Anyway, that's the helix. It was really good. What else did I sketch that? I sketched the M55. I sketched the lagoon. I sketched the Crescent Nebula, and I sketched the helix. And it was so good that I was like, you know what? I'm done. That's it. Like, I'm going to quit while I'm ahead. I was feeling pretty good. So I packed down at 11 o'clock or so and just came down here and just chilled out for an hour and then went to sleep and then got up, did some work in the observatory. And then last night, Mike came out. It was cloudy, cleared off. Somebody turned that crazy bright light on across the lake. Hopefully, we never see that again. A little bit worried about that. It looks like it's on a permanent pole down there, but who knows? And it started clearing around 10, and it really didn't clear off until Mike left at 11, like ish. And it was really just starting to get good about then, but that light was still on. So went to bed, got up at 4 and went out and ran until sunlight started to interfere. So I got a pretty good hour and a half in here this morning, Shane. It wasn't too bad.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds really nice.
Didn't put any notes in the podcast, but I did do a sketch. I observed NGC 2023, otherwise known as the Tank Track Nebula, which is right beside Zeta Orionis, which is well known as the Eastern star in the belt of Orion, or the one that IC 434 comes off of, which contains the Horsehead Nebula. And I wanted to see NGC 2023. It's been a few years since I looked at that. It's a tough one because it doesn't really seem to respond well to filters, though last night I could see it, I think, slightly better with the UHC filter, although that side was pointed a bit towards the city. So I think that filter does work pretty well on some of the city lights. I think that's the Lumicon UHC, which I think is the same as the Astronomics. But I'm not sure. Have you ever seen that tank track nebula beside, I think it's Alnitak or Zeta Orionis?
No, no, definitely not.
So that's a funny nebula. For years, I tried to see that nebula, and it's right beside that star. So you've got the field down. And one night, this was the worst night of observing. Clark Muir and I went out and we were observing on a culvert that was covered in ice. So I couldn't put my telescope out. So I had one hand on the car and holding my 7 by 50 binoculars with the other hand. It was windy. It was like -10, -20 with the wind chill or something. It was really terrible. And I saw it with my binoculars that night. I looked around in the sky for 5 minutes, looked at that, made the observation, got right back in my car and drove home. I only
Oh
observed
yeah.
for like maybe 15 minutes after chatting with Clark to Dark Adapt in his car for 15 minutes. That was it. But you can see that with binoculars. I've seen it a few times out here, but not recently, and it's tough. That's uh, that's a toughie. But what else did I go through? I went through all kinds of stuff. Um, One of the things I tried to look at was the horse head. I think I was telling you, I kind of think I sort of saw the horse head.
Yep.
Um, and it was tough. I'm not like 100% certain on it. I'm just going to look at my software here. Oh, I kind of looked at the Cat's Eye Nebula, but really quick the other night. I looked at the fireworks galaxy last night, which is really cool because it's right next to NGC 6939. I was getting a little bit on the low side. My good friend Graham, that was one of his favorite objects. I looked at the California North American Nebula, Sharpless 219. I tried to look at the Cave and Bubble nebulas the night before on Friday night, but I didn't really get an observation of those. Excuse me. Didn't take a look at the double cluster. Looked at that last week, and just kind of, yeah, my phone is trying to connect to the telescope up on the observatory, but it's slightly too far. In Orion, I tried to look at the some of the big nebulas like Barnard's Loop, and I tried to look at the one around the star. I think it's Lambda Orionis at the head of Orion. I didn't have any luck with those. The telescope is just too uh, your power is too much. Your field of view is slightly too small. I did take a look at part of the Eridanus arc, and I could see that, but that telescope is definitely getting a little bit on the large side for that. So that was a little bit unfortunate. Um, and I did try to take a look at some fainter nebula, but they didn't work out. But again, best object of the night, my last object-ish, was the California Nebula, that
Mm,
giant nebula there in Perseus.
hmm.
You've seen it lots of times because
Many
you've
times, yeah.
looked at it through my scope. And again, this is the telescope for that. Like Shane, you could see all the detail that I've ever seen in an astrophoto of it.
Yeah,
Like
that's wild.
it just had waves and waves within those waves. There's a dark spot in there. There's kind of a trough. I could see all that stuff. Again, 4 or 5 different varying levels of nebulosity brightness. I could see all kinds of structure and not just like, oh, this is a bright line. Like the line had like ripples and rolls to it, kind of like what we're familiar with looking at with the said like the Veil Nebula, but on such a grand scale. And I mean, it seemed to span. I have my 40 millimeter in there or 22 millimeter. Anyway, it spanned more than the field of view. Seemed like it spanned like 3.5 degrees, maybe, ish, give or take. Just absolutely immense. Easily, like again, could see it just as well without the filter as my 5-inch shows with the filter, and then putting the filter in the H beta primarily. Just showed so much detail. Did a sketch again. It just looks horrible here in the daytime, but certainly matches in having done the sketch and then having looked at some photos and that what you can see with an astrophoto. Just absolutely incredible to be able to see that kind of detail.
Yeah, that sounds incredible. I really I really want to see that, the Helix and a bunch of other stuff through your 7-inch. Like a 7-inch refractor is just a like an unbelievable beast, you know?
Yeah,
And what it likely can show and where it excels, I think, it aligns an awful lot with the stuff that I like to look at.
yeah,
And I think it's almost the perfect instrument, but you definitely need an observatory for something that size. So,
yeah,
it's good you have that too.
yeah. You do, and I think that was the in part like the failing of these telescopes when they made them almost 20 years ago, and they only made 8 or 9 or whatever it was, to be an affordable large refractor that was portable. And I mean, it is to a certain extent if you have a small group of friends, right? Um, but because we've even chatted about like if a couple of you guys came out, yeah, we could move it and take it. And I've even dabbled around thinking about a mount. And I would like to try to do that at some time, but it's really not a portable instrument, even though like, yeah, it weighs like 27 or 30 pounds or whatever with the rings and stuff. And 40 odd pounds with all the other accessories. Certainly lots of people transport their C14s, but it really is in the class of like a C14 or a 16-inch Schmidt Cassegrain. Um, it just is that large. Like, you look at it on paper, even to draw it out as I did before I bought it. You think that does look kind of big, but then as you know, when you stand in the presence of it, it is a massive instrument. Eh?
Well, for sure. And the other part about the portability is you're just like, that's the telescope part, but you have a large mount and a heavy
Yeah.
tripod. Like everything goes up quite a bit in terms of scale when you increase the aperture like that. So it's quite a proposition to, say, yeah, you're going to throw it in the back of the car and take it somewhere because there's a lot involved and none of it is small or light.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you were like a really fit young person, and you still like even I had a couple of my young friends come out from the university to help put it in, and I actually wrote them this week to see if they wanted to come out and take a peek through it, but they were occupied. Um, but anyway, and I mean, like it was even two of them, like one of those guys, and they're both really fit guys. They did not even dream about just grabbing it and putting it over the shoulder. Like it was like one, okay, you take one end, I'll take the other. There was no question,
Hmm.
right? And maybe there's some people out there that could kind of haul it like that, but that's definitely going to be the exceptional person who would do that. And you do see people kind of taking them around and that, which is great. Like I said, if I could, I certainly would. But it's also like there's a lot of setup and tear down time, even without even without pulling the scope off and putting up a tripod and taking it down. Like it would be cool to kind of do some sort of setup, but boy, I'd sure be worried that it would blow over at a star party or in the grasslands or something. Like you'd be out there hugging the scope in any kind of wind or rain, like
Hmm.
yeah, wouldn't want that. But at the end, I took a look at Jupiter and I don't know why I did this. I was tired, but I decided that I would do a comparison, an equipment review between my APM BK7 Prism Diagonal and my Lumicon 99% reflectivity diagonal, because that's something I
Which is a
was.
mirror, right?
That's right. So a
Yeah.
mirror diagonal versus a prism diagonal, and the results were interesting.
Oh, tell us more.
Have you ever compared? Because I have a prism diagonal from Takahashi that I bought used from you third hand, and I just wondered, do you ever do that a comparison between and every telescope's going to be different, of course, right? Between a prism and a mirror.
Not A, B on the same night. Um, I've gone occasionally back and forth, but like over days or weeks in between observing
Mm.
sessions. So
Oh,
I couldn't say that I noticed anything, but
yeah.
it wasn't the right kind of test either. So,
Yeah, so my 7 inch is an achromat. I can't and probably wouldn't buy a 7 inch apochromata, though maybe with one exception. And anyway, so it has secondary color, and that color I don't think is. I mean, you get so much light with the 7 inch anyway, but with the mirror diagonal, you can see secondary color, but it's not as pronounced as it is in the prism.
mhm.
The prism seems to either add to or enhance the secondary color. You get a lot more of the purple. I'll put it that way.
Well, wasn't some of your research indicating that the prism would reduce it in an achromat?
Yes, but I have to put a 2 inch Barlow in front of it.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
And-
Because, yeah, everything I've read about prisms is that they excel with like a longer focal length telescope, kind of
yes.
f8 and beyond.
Yes. So anyway, and it was down here and I thought about getting it, but it was already getting a little bit bright. But it was just like
Mhm.
it was Jupiter was nice and high, and I was like, oh, I want to look at Jupiter, even though it's a bit unsteady. But then I was thinking, I'll do this comparison here just with what I have, just to see, okay, like just in its native f6, which is typically like, I mean, as we always talk about, as we talked about the filters and the FUTS factor, we talk about that quite a bit. And yeah, like, is this adding or what's this doing? And so yes, it gave me more purple, like pronounced. Like I would say I was surprised. I feel like it was at least twice, maybe three times as much chromatic aberration.
Holy smokes. Wow. That's
Yeah.
not good.
No, except for one sort of startling difference is that it seemed like it was sharper and it seemed
Oh.
like like I could see the details on Jupiter a little bit better.
Hmm.
So go figure that one.
Yeah, weird, weird. Because, yeah, you would think if you're increasing some of that chromatic aberration that you would lose contrast on a planet. It doesn't make sense.
Yes, so that's what I saw at quarter to six this morning. Um, I'm not sure what to make of this particular. I'm not obviously, and perhaps this is a good example of why I don't do many equipment reviews. But yeah, I thought that the prism diagonal gave a better, sharper image than the mirror diagonal, while giving more chromatic aberration. So
Hmm.
there you go. It's
Yeah.
worse but better.
Yeah. Bizarre.
All right. Was chatting with Seth a little while ago, and he sent us a an open cluster tour of Ophiuchus to Vulpecula. Do you want to take a quick read of this email?
Yeah. Yeah. He says, hi, Chris and Shane. First, I hope you've had a well-earned, restful break. Thank you for the episodes you provided during that time. I was particularly interested in the Saturn observations, and I'm now anxiously awaiting the conjunction. Here's an observing report of a walkthrough of open clusters starting in Ophiuchus and ending in Vulpecula. The real jewel of this tour was IC 4756, not just because of its beauty, but also because it contains many interesting stars. The walk starts here, and there's an attached map showing the locations of the objects. Slightly beaten off the path, just east of the Milky Way, I traced a cluster walk, observing all objects with a 22 millimeter panoptic and a 90 millimeter f5.5 refractor, which gave him 28 times. Yeah, the 22 millimeter panoptic is no longer made. It's
Hmm.
a legendary status, I think, but I've never looked through one.
And now the 24 still exists, right? Like there's a
Yeah,
20,
yeah, the
but
24 kind of replaced it. I think the 22 had a like it's an inch
dual
and a
barrel.
quarter eyepiece, but yeah, like it also had the 2-inch sleeve on it, so it could go on a
Yeah.
2-inch focuser, I think. I can't remember.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't know
kind of
why.
yeah.
And now they've released a 24 millimeter 72 Delos, or is it another panoptic that's 24 but 2-inch format only?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember, but yeah, I can't remember.
Hmm.
Anyway, I'll
Okay,
carry
go.
on with his email. Says the walk begins with colander 350. The 39 arc minute open cluster is just a few degrees southeast of the 3.7 magnitude star Gamma Ophiuchi. It is
Be
formed.
careful how you say that. We're a
Yeah, I
family
know.
oriented show.
Don't want a NSFW tag slapped on this. It is formed from widely separated stars arranged in multiple lines. There was a double star nearby, which I later learned is HD 162652 and HD 162651, which is sixth and seventh magnitude stars separated by 79 arc minutes, I believe that is.
Hmm.
Or is that arc seconds with the two? I can't remember. I always forget.
Seconds.
Seconds.
Seconds is two.
Yeah. And an easy split. It has a WDS number, but does not appear in the Cambridge Double Star Atlas. Moving northwest, just above Sabalrai, Beta Ophiuchus, is IC 4665. This is a fourth magnitude open cluster of about 24 stars of similar magnitudes spread over 70 arc minutes, arranged in box formations. It is described as a binocular object. I don't think I've ever looked at that. Have you, Chris?
I see 4665.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that the summer beehive?
Is that? Oh, okay, okay.
Let me
Then
look that
yes,
up.
I've
But
looked at it many times.
yes, yeah, I that's just it, right? Is that
Yeah, yeah. What?
sometimes these object names we get kind of yes, that is the summer beehive.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Then seen it many times.
Yes.
Almost 10 degrees east of IC 4665 is NGC 6633. This is another large bright cluster, magnitude 4.6, with stars forming multiple lines in an east-west orientation. NGC 6755 was the next target, but I was not sure I saw it. There was an area of widely spaced stars over an area larger than the listed 14 arc minutes. Moving just 3 degrees east from NGC 6633 and slightly south brought me to the star of the show, IC 4756. If any of your listeners have not seen this, they should seek it out. It is a bright and remarkable cluster, magnitude 4.6, diameter of 39 arc minutes, The members of this cluster are a range of magnitudes and are surrounded by a polygon of bright stars. Sky Safari describes it as a binocular object that may be visible to the naked eye. Evidently, this cluster has several names. Graph's cluster, Kashmir Graph independently discovered it in 1922. The Tweedledee cluster, paired with NGC 6633 as Tweedledum, and the Secret Garden cluster. There is a discussion of this cluster in Stephen James O'Meara's Deep Sky Companions Hidden Treasures. Moving just north of IC 4756 and into Aquila brings you NGC 6709. This is a very nice cluster of 14 arc minutes diameter and near the double star Struve 2404, which is magnitude 6 and 7 stars in a tight 3.5 arc second separation. That is pretty close. Not split by me tonight, even at 90 times. Yeah, you'd have to dial up the magnification for that. Let's see here. A few degrees further north is NGC 6738. This is not shown in the Pocket Sky Atlas and is said to be an asterism. North to Vulpecula is Colander 399, the coat hanger, which is certainly an asterism named for its obvious shape. And the final cluster I viewed was Stock 1. It is approximately 2 degrees east of Alpha Vulpeculi and 3 degrees south and slightly east of Albireo. This is a large 53 arc-minute cluster and a binocular object per Sky Safari. It contains the double star Struve 2548, which those two are magnitudes 9 and 10 and about 9 arc seconds apart. I failed to note, but probably could not be split by my setup. Thanks to both of you for the inspiration you give to extend one's visual astronomical experiences. Well, thanks, Seth. Appreciate that email and that tour. That sounds like a really fun night of observing with, in a great part of the sky. Lots to see.
Yeah, very cool. President Michael Wright sent us a short note here. He's the president of the Kitchener-Waterloo Center, where I'm sort of a distant member of. He said, "Hey guys, I'm a little behind on listening, but congratulations on hitting 500 episodes. I value the hundreds of hours of enjoyment and information you have brought me. KW Rask had our fall equinox star party near Bayfield last weekend, had about 35 participants, and though I could only stay the first 2 nights, we had clear skies for at least 4 hours all 3 evenings, which might be a record. Transparency wasn't the best any of the nights, but we were able to have a lot of fun. I tackled a bunch of new objects, mostly galaxies and Ursa Major, Draco, Aquarius, Pegasus, and Pisces, but also the Helix Nebula in Cygnus, and that was quite cool to see with lots of texture and detail. I also managed to hunt down Pluto and Mike Renner's 16-inch scope and could barely just see it due to the poor transparency.
Well, that's still a cool observation.
Yeah, Clark Muir confirmed he could see it, but it was tough. Okay, well, thanks for that, Mike. And I think my builder's here, and I think we're out of time, so maybe we'll call it a podcast.
Let's do it.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Please subscribe, share the show with other stargazers you know. Send us your observations and emails to actualastronomy@gmail.com.
Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we hope you enjoyed the show. If you are interested in more information, would like to contact us, or if you would like to support the podcast, check out our website, actualastronomy.com.